Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on your MTN statewide news on this Friday. I'm Andrea Lutz. It looks as though Montana college football will not be taking place this fall after the Big Sky Conference announced an 8-game spring schedule. Also, this is news being reported by ESPN. Big Sky Conference football fans will have to wait to get their fix. This following meetings with league presidents, athletic directors, and officials, the Big Sky Conference voted not to conduct a conference football schedule this fall. The league will instead look to play its conference in the spring of 2021. Non-conference play for the league's programs is still pending further review. The league says it's begun exploring modified versions of a conference football schedule to be played in the spring and fully supports the NCAA shifting the FCS championship to the spring as well. We are going to continue to follow this announcement and continue to give you updates on both the Grizz and Bobcat football seasons. Law enforcement is asking for the public's help in locating a fugitive possibly still in the Billings area. Brian PRETTYWEASAL is wanted on warrants in Yellowstone County and is considered a person of interest in Thursday's theft and shooting near Shepherd. PRETTYWEASAL is also a suspect in a vehicle theft and shots being fired from a vehicle in Bighorn County, something that happened just earlier this morning. He is described as a 29-year-old Native American, over 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, and could be considered armed and dangerous. Citizens are advised not to approach him, but instead call 911 or your local law enforcement official. Now to an update on COVID-19 cases in Montana. We have 5 additional deaths and 155 new cases. 2 of those deaths were reported yesterday on the Rocky Boy Indian Reservation. The other 3 are out of Bighorn County. Flathead and Yellowstone counties have the highest number of new COVID-19 cases at 21. We now have 70 deaths and total cases of over 1,500. The Crow Tribe is going into lockdown for the next 14 days. Tribal Chairman AJ Not Afraid says he's tightening the previous stay-at-home order, saying it wasn't followed properly, leading to more COVID cases and deaths. Under the lockdown, only essential businesses and emergency facilities are allowed to stay open. All public gatherings are banned from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. The executive order requires students to stay home until administration at that school feels that it is safe to enter schools, and checkpoints are set on reservation public access points to monitor non-residents. Major resources are now behind the missing and murdered Indigenous women's movement. A new office is open in Billings with the purpose of investigating cold cases involving missing and murdered Native Americans. The office will operate under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. President Donald Trump signed an executive order just last fall to create Operation Lady Justice, establishing offices like this across the country. Along with Billings, there's already one up and running in Minnesota. 5 other states are expected to open offices this summer. All right, we are going to check in on the weather because it's Friday and we're all looking forward to the weekend. So Ed's going to let us know what we can expect.
I really feel like there's a lot of burden on me now to come through with something decent for the weekend. So let's start off by talking about today. Fire weather concerns across a good portion of eastern Montana. Now, the temperatures are still going to be warm, not as hot as they were yesterday, but we have high winds and low humidity, so any sparks that do develop could start to spread wildfires rather quickly. So for today, dry, breezy, and warm conditions widespread, but particularly in those areas of north central and northeastern Montana that could spread fires quickly. Most of eastern Montana will be under that fire weather concern through late this evening. But the weekend picture is a little different. We'll tell you about that coming up with the forecast in a few minutes.
We are looking forward to it, Ed. Thanks so much. The U.S. economy added more jobs than expected last month, according to new labor statistics. Still, those July numbers reveal a resurgence of economic growth as states continue to try and contain the COVID outbreak. Michael George reports from New York.
The coronavirus pandemic continues to take a toll on the slowly recovering job market. After a record gain in June, the Department of Labor says the U.S. economy added about 1.8 million jobs last month, as some states paused or reversed reopening plans. The unemployment rate dropped to 10.2% from 11.1%.
I think that we are continuing to see job growth. That is the good news. The not so good news is that because of the spread of the virus in the South and the West, and maybe now in the Midwest, the pace of job growth is slowing down some.
Even as some Americans return to work, millions are still struggling. Linda Pham's Bay Area hair and nail spa was forced to shut down again when her county was put on the California coronavirus watch list.
We had to cancel our clients and let the rest of the team know. Unfortunately, the team members really do depend on us to open because they left their unemployment to come back to work for us.
Roshonda Williams lost her job at a downtown Chicago hotel during the pandemic. And last week, like millions of other Americans, she also lost her extra $600 in supplemental unemployment benefits.
Without that, what we will get in unemployment, I can't pay rent on. And that's the scary part.
President Trump touted the latest figures, tweeting great jobs numbers, even as the White House and Congress remain deadlocked on a new relief package.
When people have the security of the extra $600 a month, they then actually go out and look for jobs, or go online in this case.
Economists say the pace of recovery hinges on whether the nation can effectively contain the outbreak and limit virus surges in the fall. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Another big sticking point is aid for cities and states. Democrats want $1 trillion to help local governments. President Trump called that a bailout for mismanaged states. Montana's economy is starting to make a comeback, but there are some challenges that still remain. Experts say declines were massive in April, with healthcare and service industry taking the biggest hits. However, the state has seen a bounce back in jobs. Montana's unemployment numbers are high, but much better than the U.S. average. Still, as coronavirus cases rise, experts are worried about local businesses that rely on consumer spending.
So those are things that people don't have to do, or they don't want to do because they don't want to be on a plane, they don't want to be in an arena, etc. So if that's part of your business, and there are a lot of those kind of businesses there at the University of Montana, I would argue I work for one of those, we have more challenges ahead than other kinds of businesses like construction.
Air travel is expected to be one of the last areas to fully recover from the economic crisis. New York's Attorney General says she wants to dissolve the National Rifle Association. She claims the group's leaders spend cash reserves on personal items and violated tax laws. The lawsuit marks an ambitious attempt to end one of the nation's most influential interest groups in the Republican Party. The NRA president called the lawsuit a baseless, premeditated attack. Voters will not be able to elect a Libertarian candidate for Montana's U.S. Senate. Their candidate, Susan Goodgeesee, she withdrew, citing pandemic-related duties as a Lewis and Clark County commissioner. Party leaders decided not to find a replacement, but there will be a Green Party candidate, though historically third-party candidates have played a factor in some of Montana's closest concepts. With an active wildfire and hurricane season predicted across the country, Montana Red Cross, they say they need your help. There's an urgent need for volunteers who can respond in person in Montana or travel to help communities throughout the United States because of COVID-19. If you are interested, the number to call is right there on your screen. You can also go online. redcross.org/volunteer today is to find out more. That's where you can go. Well, still ahead on your new news on this Friday, the Montana National Guard is facing a housing challenge. We're going to take you there to figure out what's being done to help them through the pandemic. But of course, Ed is in next with a look at that statewide weather forecast.
Storm Tracker weather starts now with meteorologist Ed McIntosh.
Welcome back to the new news. 60s in western Montana for the most part, then 70s through the midsection of the state, then 80s to almost 90 degrees once we get into the eastern plains and over into the Dakotas and northern Wyoming here as of midday. Now, with a real warm up for the eastern plains, things will slow down once we start getting into the afternoon. We still have some warm temperatures, a lot of 80s, low 90s east of the divide, staying a little cooler for you in the west. But notice the winds starting to kick up. Wind gusts right now 37 miles an hour in Great Falls, 30 plus miles per hour in Havre and down towards Lewistown, over towards Glasgow. So the entire northern tier of the state, well, we're starting to warm up. We're also adding into a lot of this wind, and the relative humidity numbers are starting to tumble. We're mainly into the 20s here as of midday. So with the lowering humidity, which is going to drop more, teens and 20s once we're into the afternoon, those gusty winds and still moderately warm temperatures, that's where our fire weather concerns really come into play. There's an upper trough here that's moving across Canada, so that's producing the winds that you see in the blue arrows here as we start making it through midday from Great Falls up towards Glasgow, causing some choppy waters into the Fort Peck region for today. We're still under a high pressure ridge, which is bringing warm and dry conditions, but much of the region with those fire weather concerns and red flag warnings through this afternoon. Use a lot of caution anywhere a spark could start to develop. Even if it's not open fire, chains from trailers, anything like that could certainly cause some fires to start and then spread quickly with the winds. Now the cold front will move off into the Dakotas, creating some stronger storms in extreme eastern, north and south Dakota. Things start to settle down a little bit tomorrow. Temperatures in general will warm in eastern Montana out ahead of this cold front. For areas of western Montana, you'll just kind of level off and see temperatures in the 70s and low 80s once again for tomorrow, and then we'll drag some of that cooler air across the eastern plains. So overall, statewide, Sunday is going to be the coolest day with a lot of readings in the 70s to mid 80s. For today, we're looking at temperatures 70s, 80s to potentially some 90s across the eastern plains. With the wind in the mix, we're certainly looking at the potential for those wildfire conditions to continue into the evening hours. Overnight temperatures will slip down mainly into the 40s and 50s, a little bit on the cool side. First thing tomorrow, check out Butte at around 40 degrees, some low 50s around Great Falls, and then mid to lower 50s across the eastern plains. That's a little bit cooler than it has been, looking at 80s to low 90s by the end of the day tomorrow. Isolated storms the next couple of days, mainly for the higher elevations. So for western Montana, looking at temperatures consistently in the 70s around Kalispell, low 80s for Saturday and Sunday around Missoula, and then a little bit warmer beyond that. For areas of southwest and south central Montana and north central Montana, Great Falls and Helena, looking at temperatures a little bit on the cool side today, starting to see a little rebound tomorrow, and then we're soaring up towards the 90s by the middle of the week. For Butte and Bozeman, looking at temperatures cool in the overnight, mainly into the 40s, but warming up to 70s to low 80s in the afternoons through the middle of next week. And for the eastern plains, temperatures today into the 80s to around 90, a little warmer tomorrow, but a bit of a downturn. It's pretty comfortable Sunday afternoon. There's the weather. Back to you.
As the COVID-19 pandemic pushed a lot of training back for the Montana National Guard, temporary housing has been constructed at Fort Harrison to accommodate social distancing. MTN's John Riley caught up with the airmen who constructed a small city in just a short few days.
3 days. That's how long it took 11 airmen of the 219th Red Horse Squadron, with the assistance of a dozen Army National Guard soldiers, to set up their disaster bed-down system capable of housing 120 individuals.
Due to the recent events in this spring, a lot of training has been pushed. Therefore, we are operating at a different tempo. And with social distancing measures in place, we're ensuring that we provide safe housing for all of our soldiers and airmen that'll be training here on site.
These units will house only 80 individuals due to the COVID guidelines on ensuring 6 feet separation between cots, and will be used in correlation with other housing on base. The bed-down system is climate controlled with heating and AC and includes showers, laundry, and electrical. Red Horse stands for Rapid Engineer Deployable Heavy Operational Repair Squadron Engineer. The airmen are highly mobile civil engineering response force that can support contingency and special operations worldwide, often on short notice. The 219th has supported both combat and domestic operations, recently assisting with Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico was pretty interesting. We set up one kit down on the baseball diamond out in a baseball field. And then the other kit we set up on the Air National Guard base in a parking lot.
The airmen of the 219th say honestly, a year ago they were not expecting to be responding to a pandemic, but they're ready to go whenever they're called upon. Reporting from Fort Harrison, John Riley, MTN News.
And we've got your latest Ag News coming up next with Russell Nemmons, so stay with us.
Ranch Report from the Montana Ag Network.
Hi everybody, it's time for your Farm and Ranch News. Well, the dispute between the Chinese and U.S. government over wheat production subsidies continues. Last month, the U.S. government officially challenged China's purported compliance with the WTO dispute decision that found China spent billions more on agricultural subsidies than their WTO membership actually allowed. Now, the subsidy programs at the heart of the WTO dispute are China's minimum procurement prices guarantee to Chinese producers. Now, keep in mind, last year's MPP for wheat in China was $8.60 a bushel, compared to the U.S. marketing loan program at $3.38 a bushel. And of course, the current U.S. FOB hard red winter wheat prices at $5.69 a bushel. Dalton Henry is the U.S. Wheat Associates Vice President of Policy and says they welcome the continued work on this case by the U.S. Trade Representative and hope to see an end to distortive policies like this that impede our ability to meet global demand for a diverse supply of high-quality wheat.
This is going to be something to watch. We know that it's not as easy as flipping a light switch. This is an issue that we've been engaged in tracking subsidies in both China and India since about 2013 when we first raised this study. And so we know that change isn't going to occur overnight. But we also know that if we're going to continue to need to export more than 50% of the U.S. wheat production every year, we've got to be identifying and growing markets. And that's why we continue to work on these kinds of issues. The good news is that we've got it teed up on very solid footing at the WTO so that whether it's solved through arbitration and retaliation at the WTO or whether it's solved politically by the two countries talking with each other, it's been made a major issue, and it's something that can get the appropriate focus that it needs.
Andy says another concern of the U.S. wheat industry is China's wheat stocks, which, by the way, are now projected to end this year at an astounding 162.5 million metric tons, comprising 52% of the entire world's wheat ending stocks. Well, stay with us. We'll have more ag news right after this. Agriculture Committee leaders want the USDA to assist sheep and lamb producers impacted by this ongoing coronavirus pandemic. In a recent letter to Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue, the lawmakers say the closure of the nation's second largest processor in Greeley, Colorado, represents an estimated 20% of our nation's processing capacity for sheep producers. The closure, the letter says, pushes USDA to help lamb and sheep growers find alternate processing and marketing options immediately. Now, the closure comes at a time when the sheep industry was already forecast to lose more than $350 million due to COVID-19 related market declines. The lawmakers say USDA has the ability to aid sheep producers in finding other options for marketing and processing in a way that keeps products flowing through the entire supply chain. Well, that's a look at your farm and ranch news. Have a great day.
All right, I guess we'll look in at the weather too with Ed.
Okay, let's
now
do
the
that.
pressure is on, so give us a good weekend forecast.
It is. It's pretty comfortable, and if you want drier conditions, we've got that as well. The concern today is across northern Montana, looking for the potential of wildfire starts thanks to breezy conditions. But check out the temperatures in western Montana, pretty livable for the course of the next few days. Great Falls and Helena also looking at temperatures a little bit on the cool side compared to average through the weekend, especially through Sunday. But then we start to turn things around rather quickly. Butte and Bozeman also looking at some cool overnight lows, warming up to the 70s and 80s in the daytime. Temperatures will be cooler in the eastern plains on Sunday, but we're back up to those 80s to 90s for next week.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Ed. Thanks for joining us.